there will always be room for human. We at Customaite, we call this human-assisted AI. You also hear the term human-in-the-loop AI, but I really prefer the term human-assisted AI, because what does it mean? The AI takes over mindless, repetitive, relatively simple, but they can be complex, but in the bigger scheme, relatively simple tasks. And the people, they will have time to focus on really value-adding tasks, on creativity, on doing what they're best at applying their expertise.
Welcome to Chain Reaction, the video podcast for the supply chain and logistics industry. In this podcast, we speak to industry leaders who share their ideas, thoughts, and anecdotes from within the logistics world.
Welcome to Chain Reaction podcast. This episode, I'm pleased to welcome Bram Vanschoenwinkel, who is the Chief Product Officer of Customaite. He has PhD in machine learning and has been involved with AI for decades, not just since the recent hype. And I think this is exactly a great opportunity for us to actually discuss this highly topical and emerging technology that has been in the works for quite a few decades, I would say, but only now it actually gets the recognition that it, I think, rightfully deserves. So could you shine some light on the technology a little bit more, but specifically with respect to the supply chain and the use cases that are in supply chain related?
Yeah, hi, Michael. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here. Indeed, as you said, I've been involved in AI for decades, starting early 2000s. And that's maybe the first point I want to make about AI and AI technology. Of course, everybody now is talking about Gen AI, generative AI, ChatGPT, and so on, making nice pictures. And while it's really impressive and the technology has real tangible applications in real world, there's so much more about AI than just Gen AI. First AI applications emerged already back in the 70s and the 80s. So and that's one of the first things when you look at AI. There's more than the Gen AI and the classical machine learning models, classification models and prediction models. Often, in most of the cases, they are still running or ruling the world in business today. When we look specifically at the logistic domain, me myself, as you said, I am a chief product at Customaite. We use AI for automating customs declaration processes.
Mm-hmm.
Back when I did my PhD, I had a strong interest in language and language evolution, and that's actually the domain of AI I am active in. That is natural language processing. So what we basically do is getting information from documents, interpreting that information, giving meaning to that information, and more than just getting the information from invoices and bill of ladings and so on, we actually prepare customs declarations. So that's the domain I'm in. That's one application. Other typical applications in supply chain management involve supply chain planning, of course. They also involve fraud detection, but also supply chain forecasting, demand forecasting, and so on. There are really a lot of applications.
There's quite a lot of applications, absolutely, and people are using. Some people call it AI, some people call it neural network, some people call. But there's an interesting bit I would like you to maybe elaborate on a little bit. So there's some people use just the AI term, but some others use AI agents. So what is the difference in your view, and how it is either applicable or how it can be applied in the supply chain setting?
Well, that's a really interesting question there. Agentic AI is actually the latest big thing in AI. We had generative AI, which is capable of generating content, where before in the more old AI, content wasn't generated, but you did predictions, you did classifications, and so on. Now but the generative AI is still focused on one specific task, and it's still reactive. We as a human, we give it a task to perform. Get me this information from a document. Do me forecasting, demand forecasting for this product, and so on and so on. Agentic AI, that's a different ballgame. There, you switch from reactive to proactive, and furthermore, rather than just focusing on one task, an agentic AI can perform multiple tasks in a sequence. It can choose which task to perform first, and so on and so on. And that's really exciting. Like, let's say, for example, in customs declarations, what we typically do, we get information from documents, and we notice that there might be an inconsistency between information on the bill of lading and information on the invoice. The next thing to do would be like the user contacts the customer. Hey, something is missing with this information. And agentic AI could take itself the initiative to contact the customer, or to look up the information in a separate source, and to fill in the gap itself
automatically. Right. That's an interesting bit. So because all those when people mention agentic AI or agents, it always reminds me of the movie The Matrix. where you actually have this autonomous self, almost, but essentially, as you said, is proactive thinking, and it's almost independent decision making, obviously within certain parameters, but at least you can automate various functions and various actions and activities. But that brings us to another interesting topic, where a lot of colleagues within the sector are beginning to either get afraid or being told to be afraid of AI taking their jobs. We talked a little bit about that. We are actually thinking that is not necessarily going to be the case. But what is your view on this collaboration or relationship between the humans and the machines evolving?
I think there are two things to consider here. First of all, the technology is very powerful. We have to proceed with caution. And what do I mean with that? The AI models, they are trained on data. And whatever data you feed it, that's what they will output. That's what will come out. So the models, they can be manipulated. And you see it in the media, like deep fake videos and so on and so on. So the technology can be abused. Likewise, it can be abused in a supply chain sector or a customs sector as well. So we need rules and we need procedures to use the technology in a responsible way. But once that is done, I'm not the doom stinker. I don't believe in this. You call the Matrix. I was more like
Skynet.
a Skynet fan with the Terminator. I don't believe in Skynet overtaking the world, because it's like you said, you still give the AI tasks and to work autonomously within certain parameters, within certain boundaries you set beforehand. That being said, I also believe that there will always be room for human. We at Customaite, we call this human-assisted AI. You also hear the term human-in-the-loop AI, but I really prefer the term human-assisted AI, because what does it mean? The AI takes over mindless, repetitive, relatively simple, but they can be complex, but in the bigger scheme, relatively simple tasks. And the people, they will have time to focus on really value-adding tasks, on creativity, on doing what they're best at applying their expertise. But they have to give something in return to the AI.
Right.
They have to help the AI when it's in doubt. And that's how we work at Customaite. And when the AI is in doubt, we have a very nice user interface. The user will see, oh, no, that wasn't right. While doing his work, he corrects the information and continues in the process. And that information will be picked up by the AI models to improve over time. In this context, I strongly believe what we often say is like, your job will not be taken over by AI, but by somebody who can work with AI. And that's the big difference.
You are listening to Chain Reaction, This podcast is brought to you by Phlox, the leading marketplace for the supply chain and logistics industry. Visit phlox.is to find out how you find the perfect supplier or make your services available to prospective buyers. Thanks for tuning in. Now back to the show.
And that's exactly, it's a much more powerful proposition, and the colleagues and the companies that are embracing AI in the sense of its practical applications are going to get much more proactive. It's a productivity enhancement tool. It's like digging a hole with a shovel versus an excavator. You actually can get much more done, but you still need to have a person who makes the decisions. We're doing with our platform as well. It's very similar. Routines can be taken care of. So because I don't know, people moving numbers in Excel spreadsheets, there's too much room for error, but no one but humans can solve very complex tasks, some exceptional scenarios, something that is not straightforward or has never been seen before. Because that's the thing with AI, it can only learn on what has been done. It can't completely discover new methods to. And that's the that's a tricky area. So we call, I think I wrote an article on that. It's called, we called it cyborg supply chains. So from a supply chain point of view, it is an element of artificial thinking and a computer and a machine interface, machine support, but you can't go without the human expertise. On the expertise side of things, this is interesting. What are your views on that? Could that potentially be a detriment to the expertise development in humans? Because we may get to over-rely on AI doing a lot of things, so humans will stop learning.
That's almost a philosophical question. You also hear this like students in high school, they all use ChatGPT to make essays. Will they finish high school and won't they be able to write essays? And you have two types of teachers. A good friend of mine, she's a teacher, and she tells to me like, you have some teachers and they are against it. They say like, if you, of course, you have AI detectors, and then they will screen the essay and they will say, yeah, you use ChatGPT, you get no grades. You have other teachers who embrace it, and they teach the students how to work with it, because like we said, it's fantastic technology, but you have to stay critical. You have to think yourself. You cannot accept anything it will say. Like in Gen AI, a famous thing is hallucinations. Sometimes it outputs things that are just nonsense. So rather than punishing people or punishing students, learn them how to work with the technology in a responsible way. And I think that is the way that workforce will also need to adapt. You will have to keep on thinking for yourself and be critical, but it will just be in a different way. And you will have AI as a sparring partner and as an assistant to support you, but stay critical for yourself.
No, very, very interesting, very interesting. And that, I think, and this kind of leads me to the specific use case that you at Customaite are addressing is the kind of the customs clearance and a support of customs documentations, especially given whatever's happening with the tariffs, whether they on, whether they off, and whatever's happening there with Brexit. Are we in? Are we out?
Absolutely.
Apparently, the jury's still out on this one. How do you guys? Well, first of all, can you specify a bit more explicitly what the use case is that the Customaite platform solves, and then also touch on this kind of the AI hallucinations and how the potential kind of errors or the room for mistakes is being addressed through the platform, how it works, and as well as in the hybrid setup of human versus machine learning interfaces.
Absolutely. So what the platform does is it takes documentation, documents like invoices, packing lists, bill of ladings, certificates, licenses, and so on and so on. and then it
in
will,
whatever form, so scans,
in
electronic
whatever forms, in
documents,
whatever
and yeah,
forms.
okay,
It can be an Excel, it can be images, it can be PDF. You can send it to the platform by email. It can be by API integration. So whatever, and we call this a declaration request.
right, yep,
So based on that documentation, the first thing our platform will do is it will analyze the information. It will read out all the information, and then it will determine, what am I looking at? Am I looking at an import declaration, an export declaration? Is it a transit declaration? Of course, you have sub declaration types. It will do this analysis. And based on that analysis, it knows what data it needs to get from the documents. And then it will start getting information from the documents, but it does much more than just getting information from the documents. And what we do is, for our customers, we look at the importer, the exporter, and we look at the historical context. Have we seen this type of declaration request before? And what can we learn from what has been done in the past? And so we get information from the documents, we enrich it with the insights we get from the historical context we have for the same importer and the same exporter. And then we make what we call a declaration proposal. So it's all necessary information. It's like tariff lines, it's invoice lines. We combine invoice line information with packing list information, and so on and so on. And then what we do is we combine it, or we validate information with master data. And that's one of the, we call it guardrails. How do we deal with the potential errors and hallucinations of AI? First thing is, we validate the data we found on the historical data. We use master data. And then thirdly, what we also do is we have the human validation. Right. And we built this nice user interface. And actually, important thing there is, make it white box, make it insightful for the user how AI came to a certain decision. So we indicate in the UI where on a document we have found a specific type of information, why the algorithm took a certain decision, with visual markers like we found it on the document, we found it in the historical context, you made this adjustment in the past. And the more green the user sees, the more confident he is that a certain type of information is right. And then we leave it up to the user, when in doubt, to look in a certain piece of information in more detail and to correct it.
Okay, no, that's very interesting. And then in terms of then the type of problem that this solves for customers, and first of all, actually, who are your customers? Would that be the logistics providers, or would that be the end users, the actual importers or exporters?
We have two types of customers at this moment, and that's the logistics providers and the customs brokers. So today, Okay. So today we're active in, like, I think 12 European countries, and well, I would say 50-50 customs brokers and big logistics providers. So not the real end customers.
Okay, because I've seen and I've spoken with a few companies. So there are some document filing platforms. So the people that have through various APIs and interfaces, they file with either HMRC or whatever the customs, the governmental agencies that support that. So your solution essentially helps the users, the customs brokers, as you said, in the 3PLs, to prepare the documents in the right format with the maximum completeness. So any potential delays at the customs border on customs checks get eliminated. Right. Okay.
Absolutely. And the big difference, because you have quite some as you say, you have quite some technology providers on the market that do extraction of information from documents. Right. But we do much more. We actually prepare what we call a customs proposal, a declaration proposal. And in doing so, you will not find all the information on documents. So what we made is, we call it like a digital twin of the analog paper workspace of the declarant. We went to the declarants, to the customs people, and we watched them, and we saw that they use markers, and we saw that they use pivot tables in Excel, and we saw them using tricks of distributing weights over invoice lines, and all those tools. We digitalize them. So we have like a digital, we call it our magic marker. It's like a digital marker that they can use. We have Excel-like functions. And then once you have this prepared data, we send it to a customs declaration software. And from there it goes to customs.
And they do the funding. So essentially, yes, you prepare. So your output of the system is actually a pack of documents with the highest chance of getting accepted, being complete, and enabling the clean customs transaction. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course for those flows with a lot of with very big invoices, we have examples of cases that would take customers like 6 to 8 hours to complete. They can now do in 15 or 20 minutes, saving almost a day of work. And that is a very important thing, because when we it is not reduced to zero the time.
Yes.
You reduce it from 8 hours to 15 minutes or to 20 minutes. And there are a lot of people in the market who promise reduction to zero and full automation. That's the topic we discussed before. And then when you're in the sales process, somebody tells me, yeah, but I saw a colleague of yours and he told me he can do it in 30 seconds. And then I'm like, I don't believe it. You still need people involved doing the final touch. Yeah. And let's be honest, a reduction from 8 hours to 20 minutes, it's not bad.
I don't know, it's quite an impressive. Yeah, I mean, I think it can be reduced to 30 seconds, but then you can get something that unusable, and you will lose time on the other end. Absolutely. I mean, that kind of thing cannot be. I mean, to our earlier point, it cannot be reduced to zero, but one person can now produce more, process more volume, more transactions, and actually, so that is almost like an enabler for businesses to actually grow that particular part of operations. But I think the one point that when we talked about kind of the data and interfaces and the use of data and learning from a variety of data sources, I think one of the questions, and actually one of the last questions that I actually like to ask every guest on the podcast is the supply chain and logistics and supply chain industry kind of in general, unfortunately, has one of the characteristics is the lack of trust between parties involved, and it's a lot of parties involved on all dimensions and all steps of the process. And with AI, that problem may become even greater when people are being concerned of the use of their data. If you're feeding your maybe commercially sensitive information through into an outside provider that is going to teach their AI system on all of it. So how does that? So there's two parts of that question. First of all, is how do you treat the privacy of the data of the users, making sure that it's not becoming disclosed in public. And the second of all is how that helps the overall trust in the sector for the players.
Yeah, I think it's really an important topic, and data security and protecting the data of our customers is of the greatest importance, because of course the data we process, they are international trade invoices with sensitive pricing information, and you do not want this information to become publicly available. So to do that, of course, we have data processing agreements with our customers. We are ISO certified, of course. We have the most strict security policies imaginable. That is very important. But that's only one part of and that's actually what is necessary to convince companies. And they are right. Show me that you protect my data. Show me that you will not have any data leaks. Show me that my data will be safe with you. And they're right. And we can do that. But then there is a second thing. That's using their data to improve the models, to improve the AI models. And there we have seen in the past that sometimes you get into discussions with companies like, you cannot use my data to train your models, or you can only use my data to train models that are for me.
Right.
But it doesn't work like that. It really doesn't work like that. You can have it work like that, but dear customer or dear prospect, then you will have models that are not the best in class,
That are
because you
limited,
will only
yes,
have a
yeah.
limited view on the world, and that is your limited view of the world. So either you accept that you contribute to an ecosystem where AI is fed, also using your data in an anonymized way,
Yeah.
and you reap the benefits of that, also of the data that is used of the other customers, or you do not, and you're happy with suboptimal models.
Yeah, and that's probably the guardrails that you talked about, is where one of the approaches would be to anonymize the data, so the model can still be trained on the kind of the variety of circumstances and the scenarios,
Absolutely.
whilst not particularly knowing that that company has bought this product at that price, which was shipped on this date, in this quantity. So that is very commercially sensitive piece of information.
Yeah, and furthermore, and that's maybe a little bit more on the technical side. Of course, we have a Chinese wall principle between our different customers. No data can ever cross into the environment of another customer. But when you take it off the production environment and you start training your models in your data science environment, out comes a model. But in that model, there's no more data to be found. It's like more, yeah, it's like a neural network that it's not interpretable for people. It outputs insights without relating back to the original data.
No, it's very interesting. So, my last question is: this is obviously kind of an emerging and as a highly evolving technology, like almost as we speak. How do you find your conversations with the market, with your customers, which are, because logistics and supply chain industries tend to be quite conservative, and very often not the first to jump on kind of the latest and the greatest technology, even if it has if it has a perception of great benefits, still need to be kind of believed of delivering kind of strong value and use case and the return on investment. So how do you find your conversation the fit with the market, and maybe even segmenting into kind of big multinationals versus smaller dedicated kind of niche players? So how do you find that? Because I mean, it's a challenging environment, it's a challenging market, volumes unfortunately going up and down, and everybody's kind of fighting fires all the time. So how do you find these conversations going?
Well, not always. They're not always easy, as you said. And one of the things is, it's like you said, it already starts from an IT point of view. We are software as a service provider, so we have a cloud solution. Often, when you come with the big multinational logistics players, often they haven't made the move yet to the cloud, and you have to convince their IT departments like, what, you're a cloud application, and that's sometimes that's the first hurdle you need to take, like whoa, don't can't you make an on-premise version of your platform for me, so we can put it in a nice server room over here on the fifth floor? So that's the first thing,
Yeah.
but it's starting to get better. And then the second thing, what you notice is indeed, well, everybody hears a lot about AI technology, and you unfortunately you have quite some inflated expectations. They want instant success, but as with any IT project, It requires you to adjust your processes a little bit, to integrate it in your IT landscape, to train your people, and you have to take these things into account. What we typically do to convince our customers, we help them to make their business case. Our model it's a pay-per-use model. So for every tariff line, you pay a certain fee, and we know how much time we save per tariff line on average.
Okay.
We measure it, we communicate it, and using these facts and figures, we manage to convince companies to make the jump, to go for it. And then by showing them the figures afterwards and measuring it, they actually see that it's worthwhile. The investment.
Okay. No, perfect. Well, thank you very much, Bram. I think it was a fascinating conversation. Definitely a very topical discussion I think we had, and I think it's extremely important use case that you guys are addressing. So, thanks very much. Thanks very much to come into the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for tuning into Chain Reaction. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please don't forget to subscribe. If you have a story or opinions to share from your sector, we'd love to hear from you. Simply reach out to Chain Reaction or visit flocks.is for more information. See you next time.